Ready for the trip.
Let's travel all the way.
Yeah, I'm so excited today because for the last 30 years, I would say, we always come back to this moment in our lives when we took this trip, 1994, April 1994. And I think it was like 2.5 weeks, something like that, right? Where we went through several countries, several cities, and this was an amazing, at the time, I wouldn't say it was amazing. I will admit, I think I was a little bratty and a little arrogant and maybe not as
No.
appreciative. But this was my graduation gift that my mom and my aunt worked so hard to put together. And in hindsight, I can see what a gift it was to go through this journey of a European vacation. We always come back to some stories, and I think these stories were lessons. And for those who've traveled in groups, especially with family, they can probably relate. And I will be very curious to see if people share comments of similar situations. But I will also say, and you will all chime in, there is a certain energy that comes when the three of us are together that inevitably anomalies, things that have never happened, suddenly happen. And we will be talking about some of those things. It's going to be a nice trip down memory lane. And you'll be hearing, the other thing is you'll hear our own rendition of what happened because some things some things we each have a different perspective on. And so we're going to be highlighting a few of those things, the lessons learned, and yeah, we'll get into it. Sound good?
Very
Perfect.
good.
All right, all right. My hope is that as we're talking, I'll be able to share some pictures from the events we'll be talking about. So, first, I'm going to show a picture of us day one, which is the three of us very happy and not knowing what was ahead of us. Little did we know. First memory that we'll share is it was an unfortunate event, but this is my recollection, and then I want you all to chime in. So I remember we were in Paris and we were looking for a place to eat, and we stumbled on this cafe. I don't even remember how we were drawn to that cafe, but the three of us entered and asked if there was a table, and then suddenly we heard a crash outside. Something horrific. And so we decided to go out and see what happened. All we knew was there was a bicyclist across the way who was on the ground, clearly impacted by something. The three of us panicked. And the only thing we could say was, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I think almost immediately I heard mom start to say, what?
Ambulance, ambulance. Because you know what? Nobody seemed to care. The poor guy there.
That couldn't move at all,
No.
right?
And the owner of
Bicycle
the
was all
cafe.
twisted like this.
It
And
is terrible.
and I recall, so you went to the maitre d' or whoever was helping us with the table to say, outside, ambulance. And then he proceeded to say, just a few minutes for your table. Didn't even care about what was happening. And so I'm not sure how this happened, but eventually a vehicle comes up, right? And we think it's the emergency vehicle. And so they pull up and they start talking to the bicyclist. But in a matter of seconds, they pulled him up, got him on his feet. Clearly, he can barely stand. And then they look like they're taking information. But then shortly after that, they have him waiting and then they open the vehicle, right? And then they proceed to take out fire equipment, emergency equipment. I mean, it was like 10 minutes of taking things out of the vehicle, right?
But
And then
this way, the guy was standing up, right?
standing up,
All,
standing like,
all,
but clearly barely standing. And then they put him on a gurney. I think it was a gurney, right? And then they slide him in, and the whole time we're narrating like they're not going to put all those things
my
back in there
goodness.
because there can't be enough room for this. No, one by one, each piece of equipment they took out, they stuff it back in around this guy, we assume, right? And then eventually they take off. Meanwhile, the maitre d' that we're dealing with, no worries about this, just takes us back inside to go ahead and have our meal. The bizarrest thing I've ever seen by far. We talked about like these are lessons for us, and really, there's not a big lesson here other than us
Other
hysterically
than don't
watching.
crash, don't crash in Paris, please.
At
Don't have
least
any
don't
accident
crash in
there.
Paris. Don't crash in Paris.
For sure. I think that was definitely, we're like, we don't want to have any kind of emergency while we're out here because that. Now, hopefully, things have changed. I've not witnessed an emergency in a while out there, but yeah, that must have, that I would say that was a little bit scary. I would say we were all a little hysterical, but eventually he got help. So that was one of the first memories that I had from that trip. Now the
And we were wondering if the guy survived.
I know, and
We
not
couldn't
knowing was
follow.
was
Yeah.
worrisome, right? Especially under the conditions,
Because I do remember he was like screaming, right?
Yeah,
Yelling a little bit.
He
Yeah,
was in
right.
he was in
pain.
he was in
He was in
pain.
pain. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Even when he was standing, he was hopping because clearly one of his legs was really hurt and he couldn't
Yes.
stand straight. He was trying to lean on to things. And this is not commentary on, Paris's health system or anything like that. We're not familiar with that, but
Oh, no.
it was definitely impressionable and scary to witness. So
By the second or third day that we've been there.
exactly, exactly. Now, the next one is
Okay.
something that I'm sure other people do. And obviously, we were planning an extensive trip and on a budget. And so, so this one is interesting about staying in Paris and trying to be there on a budget and accommodations that my dear Thea arranged that I was not aware of. So, do you want to tell the story of how we got busted?
Well, it was, I mean, it's incredible. First of all, I want to mention that this is my first trip to Europe. And I think your mama's the second one, and you and me the first one, right?
Hmm.
So, of course, we were so excited to see the old, the old countries, right? The old cities that is Europe. I'm telling you, it was a dream come true for everybody, I would say. So we were very excited. By then, I was working for the airline, right? So we do have some certain discounts. Of course, benefit of working on that row. Anyhow, I did got all the hotels, and especially on this hotel back then, of course, they charge you per person, right? Either one single, doubles, or triples. So it did went a little bit higher with the triple. So I said, you know what? This cuisine for a double. Joanna and Anna can sleep together, and that's perfect. So that's what I did. I reserved a hotel room for double. We got there, and I remember the hotel. If correct me if I'm wrong, but it was really a nice, tiny hotel, like kind of boutique, right? When we went up to the room, it was tiny place, tiny room. So anyway, by the time we were getting close to the hotel, I told Joanna, there is something you need to know. And she's like, uh-huh. And I go, well, first of all, your mom and I will have to check in first without you. What do you mean? Well, you need to squeeze in the corner, like you're ignoring us totally because we're checking in the room, right? And this is for a double room. What do you mean double room? Double room because mama, and we're going to squeeze you in. We didn't know. I didn't expect what in Europe, how they handle things. honestly, on parentheses, I've been in hotels when you pay double and you can put three people in there. But anyhow, this is in a different country. So we check in, they give us the room, right? And that room, actually, we pay for a tour, didn't we? It was
Mm-hmm.
included a tour next
Mm-hmm.
day. So everything
It's like
was
a
like in
perfume tour or something like that. It included a perfume
exactly
tour. Uh-huh.
perfume tour. So we got, the tour, but of course, if it's a double room, it's for two people, right? Even the tourists. Yeah, we check in, they gave us the room. I say, you wait, Joanny, until 10, 15 minutes, you go up to the room, okay? She was not happy at all. Of course not. This is the first day in Europe for us. Anyhow, we went into the room, and of course, it was a tiny little beautiful room. This is the first impression Joanny got, right? What you mean? So that's the first one. And the second one was on the tour. We had to meet the people, the person that was representing the tour guide and talk about it, and talk schedules and all that. So, Anna, if you want to jump in and tell us what happened when we meet these people.
Well, Joanna was so much with us those, I think, 3 days or 4 days in Paris or something like that. That of course they would see her in the hotel. And I don't know, I'm not sure exactly. You and I came with the idea that she was with us because she was studying in the university in La
In French.
Sorbonne and she was visiting us. That's the only way that we could excuse that, she was with us in the excursions we took and most of the time together. And I guess they took it. They accepted
Well,
that.
well, did they? Because what I recall is at some point the tour guide pulled me aside or came up to me and was like, "Oh, so how are your studies going?" And talked to me in French, and I was like, I don't, I'm just learning. I'm just learning." And so I had to feed into the lie to not get us busted.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah,
But
it was scary.
it's a little scary to not get busted, but it went fine. It went fine. Also, what I thought was hilarious and was that I dressed in a beret and a trench coat the whole time. To me, that's like if we're trying to be inconspicuous, that was not the way because all the other French people are not dressing like that. So I think I stuck out like a sore thumb and was just like trying to make the case for no, I'm really studying here. So that was interesting. So the lesson
Oh,
for sure, and I know everyone travels on a budget, but be prepared to be busted if you cut
if you
corners.
do these kind of things, correct. Of course, it's scary, and you know what? They're very expert. They know. So,
They
of
figured
course,
it out, but it
they
didn't
figure it
impact
out. They
us and it was
figure it out.
fine. It gave another layer of humor and fun to our adventure. So this
We did
next one,
enjoy the perfumes, though,
we did enjoy the perfumes. In fact, I
very
remember we
much.
held on to some samples for a very long time,
Oh,
which is really nice. And the whole experience was really nice for sure. For
yeah.
sure. This next this next one, wow. This
Oh,
is
that's a
probably
nice.
the highlight of our trip. So we were in Brussels. As I was looking back at the pictures, Aunt Lauda, you actually had a friend. Was it Carla? I can't remember his name, but you had a friend who met us there. He was in the pictures. And we were there for like a day, like not even a full day, but we were there and we spent the day shopping. And then in the evening, we went around and we even found the little statue of the boy who's
That's
peeing.
in Bruges, right? I mean, in
Yes,
Belgium.
in
Yeah,
That was
Belgium.
in
Yes,
Bruges,
in
in
Belgium.
Belgium.
Yes,
Belgium. We went
yes,
to Belgium.
yes. And we found the statue. Who the name I actually looked it up because I couldn't remember is Mannequin Piss, which
Yeah, peace.
means the little pissing man, actually. But
I
that was our
was looking
highlight.
for this big
Right, right. And
statue.
it's like this tiny. But we were having fun. We
Oh,
were
yeah.
exploring at the plaza, the which is called the Grand Place. they had in the night, and we didn't know this, a light show. And so we decided, let's stick around for the light show. And so we decided
Oh,
to stick
yeah.
around. It's late. I would say we finished up probably what, after midnight or 1 o'clock or something like that.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
late.
Yeah.
And we had to get back to a train station, right, for the next leg of our trip. So we ended up going to the metro. There was no one. I think there was one couple or something before around the time we got there, and then
When we got
they
there.
left on a train and they made the announcements. Now the announcements were made in the languages likely French or Flemish and or
Uh-huh.
Flemish, because there were like two or three languages and
Local.
local, and it was fast, and we didn't really catch it, and we weren't really sure, is that our train? So we saw this couple leave. We heard and we made our best guess this isn't our train. And we waited and waited, and the whole time there's this sound that makes you think of the tracks. The tracks are live, they're active. So in our minds we thought there's still trains coming. And then suddenly this other young man shows up, and he starts speaking to us in a language we don't understand. And we're like, oh, the train. Yeah, we're waiting. We've been waiting for the train, right? And so we stick around. About 15 minutes later, we no trains have come. And then we hear a loud banging, a series of loud bangs. And then we start to wonder what's happening. So then we started to roam around the metro and shortly realized that the steel doors that secure the metro had shut down. So now we are trapped in the metro with no clue,
Station. Hmm.
station with no clue of when they're going to open. So immediately, uh, this is my version. My aunt and my mom become hysterical and start to say, how do we get out of here? We have to get out of here and then take a taxi to the train station, I guess. And so immediately we start looking for anything, any way we can get out. Meanwhile, this poor 20-something-year-old is trying to keep the three of us calm. So I think at Lara, you see a camera and you say, let me start throwing things at the camera because someone's clearly watching. And even if we destroy the camera, they'll understand this is an emergency. And mom suddenly says, 911, right? 911, is that what you said?
911, 911. The poor young man, so handsome and so sweet. Uh, no, no, madam. No, no, no. Well, she said that to Aunt Laura. No, no, madam. Because she's
Because
Because I
you're going
was
to
looking at
destroy the
jumping.
the
camera.
camera.
Yeah.
I was jumping in the camera and say, help, help, because you miss saying that the lights start turning off.
Oh, that's right. The lights started turning off.
So
So
we
now
were
we'd
like
be,
running and moving on until we have, fine light, but the light back us, it was turning off. So it was dark. And this poor guy, which was really beautiful, wonderful. I mean, really nice. I would think it's an angel. He was really after us and saying, so I saw the camera and that's when I did, please help. And then your mom,
yes,
911, 911.
yes.
911. Ah,
Which
because we
finally,
saw a telephone.
we saw a telephone, and then finally it
Oh,
clicked
yes.
for the young man that, oh, emergency number, right? And so then he called, and eventually one of the big doors opened, and on the other side were several cop vehicles. And so this poor man figures, I'm alone with three women who are hysterical. I need to get out of here. And
Not
so
only that, but I think, remind me, let me know if I'm wrong, but I think he said, calm down because they're going to catch me and put me on jail,
I think he
thinking
did.
that
I
I'm the
think he
one
did.
aggressive
And when they finally started talking to us, I think he took lead and tried to explain in their language,
in
right?
their
Like
language.
tried to explain what was happening. And then we were like, we want to thank you. We want to, and he's like, no, 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 no.
Bye-bye. Well, he did took a taxi and pay for it so we can move on to a different station, didn't we?
I think so.
He
I
did
think he
something
paid,
for
yeah.
us.
Yeah,
And
I
when
think
we
you did.
wanted to invite him something, we wanted to, to thank you. He said,
Appreciate it.
fine,
Yeah.
fine, merci, merci.
No, 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 no,
Please
no, no.
follow your destination. Move on.
Please leave. No.
Carry
And
on.
so we eventually got to where we needed to go. But, and for sure, I agree. We were fortunate that he appeared at all. Otherwise, we would have been stuck there still. And we do say he was an angel. And I think in the future, we'll be talking about our experiences that really do feel like interventions, right? Because without that we probably would not have gotten out of there. And he disappeared. He just kind of disappeared in thin air, just like he appeared.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
but the
What?
lesson, well, the lesson for sure is, and I know this was kind of an impromptu, like get this trip put together, is of course learn some basic language of wherever you're going, but also know your schedules for things and just be better
Very
prepared for
much.
that. Now things are very different. I'm sure it's a lot easier with Ubers and things like that, right? Because you have the
And the
convenience
phones,
on the
because we
phone.
didn't have any cell phones back
Right, this is
then.
pre-cell phones for sure. It makes
Yes.
traveling a lot different.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but he was an experience.
Wow. And we had a wonderful evening, right? We enjoy Belgium
It was
so
great.
much.
Very much
Brussels,
so.
it was
Hmm.
so beautiful, and the square and the lights and all this
Hmm.
show.
I
I'm
know.
telling you,
And I have to point out that right now we laugh because really it's unbelievable, but it was terrifying.
it was.
It was because
Not only that, because we were the only four of us inside of this metro station, big one, lights coming off, and everything you think is that all these strange people are going to start coming out of the tunnels.
no, completely, because that's what I assume too, is that they obviously connect. And if there's people waiting in other spots, the stops, and then using that to come in to other, areas of the metro stations, that was a little terrifying, especially when the lights went out, right? Because we had nothing on us to have an emergency light or anything if everything went out. So that was a good lesson. The next thing that I started thinking about was, and this goes back to travel planning, but my tia loves to shop. And in the course of this trip, she actually had to buy luggage to pack some of the things that she had gotten. And so at some point in our journey, we had stored luggage in Paris at one of the metro station stops to not have to travel as much throughout the other countries. So we knew on our return we had to collect the luggage and then proceed to the airport. My mom and my aunt don't remember the details of this. I do, because it was time to go home and I was afraid we weren't going to go home. So all I remember is that we got to the station where the luggage was, and then and we thought it was close to the airport we needed to go to. And when we looked at the names, it clicked with me. This doesn't look like, I don't think this is near the airport we need to be at. Now
Because there
there's
are two different airports,
there
right?
were two different. Now there's three, but there were two at the time.
Oh, back then
And
were two.
and so we were like, no, no, it has to be. But I was like, no, there's another airport. I'm sure there's another airport. So once we realized that we were not in the right place, we realized we had to get back on the train to get to the right stop for the right airport. And I'm going to throw a map up because I think it was between Orly or Charles de Gaulle. I think those were the two airports. I'm not sure which one was I think Charles de Gaulle was the right one. I found a map of the distance. And so just realizing we didn't have, I mean, we were running a little behind too. So it was like, we need to get there on time to get, checked in and all that stuff. And so the panic was we didn't have a lot of change on us left to get back on the train to get to the right place. I think we were scrambling in our coin purses to find stuff. I think, and Lauda, you pulled out a $2 bill. And I'm like, this is not going to help us. Put that away. That's not going to help us. And so
Now, Back then, we couldn't pay with credit cards.
Right.
Everything was cash. Now I think it's all
Exactly.
credit card. So
Exactly.
that's different.
And that probably is really helpful for people now, right? Because you have all the
Yes,
electric payments on your phone. You usually have your phone on you, or you have a pass that's electronic, and that just, gets you in no problem. But at the time, it was all hard cash. And so I don't even remember how we got out of that. I don't know if someone had sympathy for us and just kind of let us get in, or we were able to scramble and find the change. But somehow we were able to get back on the right train to get
the
to the
right
right
train.
airport, and we were able to get out no problem.
That was another thing that we all learned, I think, for the first time. Europe, for some reason, is it's a very amazing and easy way to travel on metro,
Hmm.
right? Because it's either north, south, east, west. I mean, and you all you have to do is be careful or watch the station names.
Right.
So if you go into the station Charles de Gaulle, you need to look where we're stopping and end up on Charles de Gaulle. But anyhow, that was kind of like a new thing for me, at least.
Yeah.
And by the time learning this situation, it was kind of it took us a little longer.
Which brings you back to the lesson, have the correct change. Well, of course, now it's different, like we say,
No,
but
right now I think it's so good. You just,
now it's
cash it, cash it.
different.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's very different. It gives you a little more room to be
Yeah.
prepared, right? In the old days, you had to have, I would have said if things were the same, then have a little extra cash for you at the end of your trip for any
Yeah.
kind of emergency that, or another way to pay to get through. But
Yes.
now it's a little easier.
Yeah.
The last one we have is definitely something that's avoidable. And this is, Mom is going to tell this story where we were on the train. I can't remember what our in-betweens
Oh,
were, where we were leaving,
yes.
going to. But it was middle of the night, and the train attendant was doing their checks of people's paperwork and documents to be traveling. And so I think I was on the top bunk listening to music at the time, trying to fall asleep. And then suddenly there's a knock on the door. So, Mom, do you want to tell that story?
Oh, sure. Sure. I think we were coming back from Germany,
Italy, Germany to Paris,
Paris
no? Coming
to
into
Paris,
Paris,
Germany to Paris.
almost at the end.
Yeah, before all the, I think before the last thing we had with the wrong airport,
Oh,
the
yeah.
wrong the wrong airport and having to come back to the right one. But this, I guess, my wonderful sister Laura didn't realize her visa expired that day we were traveling. So when they knocked at the door, I don't know exactly what.
I want to mention this is yeah, it's a visa for Mexicans back then to issue for Mexicans to enter to France.
France. Uh-huh.
But I didn't realize or I didn't check or whatever it is that it takes a certain time,
It had a
valid time,
date.
right?
Uh-huh. In
Okay.
a way, it was good on our side. Thank God that you began to discuss, explain to the people. I don't know exactly how you did.
But you have to mention
Spanish.
this. They knock at the door. The three ladies, we were in bed because the train, right? This is during the night. They knock at the door, and I don't know, I think it was French, open the door or something. So we all were like, what's going on? Kind of excited. And that's when I opened the door. I think I did open the door.
Yes. And then they asked for the permits. I think we showed ours, and
All in
yours
French.
expired that same day. So somehow you convince them that we were not staying in France anymore. We were going into Paris to take the plane and come back to Los Angeles. So I don't know how you did it, but okay, they accepted with the condition you were not staying or you would get in trouble. So that was, and of course, Joanna again, kind of what is going on here?
Are
And
we
I
all going to
asked
be detained? What's going to happen?
and I tell my
Never,
dear
ever.
sister, I cannot
Terrible.
believe you. You didn't check the dates.
No, I didn't.
I didn't. I didn't. Uh,
Oh.
Yeah, so I think, and I don't know how things are now, but for sure, always they say make sure your documents to travel internationally are in order and be mindful of
Oh,
those
yeah,
things. And and I
Completely.
know a lot has changed now too, where there's some extra layers to that. So I think just be prepared for that because you don't want a surprise like that for sure. Um,
definitely.
Honorable mention, I'll mention there were definitely other things that we did during the trip that it goes back to like only to us. And in looking at some pictures, I remember when we were in Neuschwanstein, I think it was when we came across the Swan Lake. And I think we had just eaten or something. So we were walking around exploring the first day we arrived. And we came across a lake where there were some swans. They were very peaceful out in the middle of the lake. And then Aunt Lauda said, "Oh, this is so nice. Let's get closer to the water to take pictures." And so Aunt Lauda was the first who took a picture by the lake, and then she's like, "You guys should take a picture too." And so, as Mom and I positioned ourselves close to the lake, all of a sudden we see these swans coming to the edge of the water, and suddenly they're on the land walking towards us, and they made horrible sounds, is what I remember, because they were like, "Mah, mah, mah." I was like, what are we doing here? Why are we standing here? We need to leave. And and we did, and they didn't bother us. That was another memorable
That
moment.
was scary because it seems that they were attacking us, right?
It
Because they
did.
were after us,
Well, in the
right?
I
picture, you
know.
can see they're coming towards us. They're not like just going on land and walking around. They're coming towards us.
Yes,
So
yes.
just another adventure.
So
Another
the nice,
adventure.
before, instead of showing like a beautiful, what would I say, movie, Disney movie with the beautiful swans and all these wonderful, I felt like Wonderland, really. And
It
all of
was
a sudden
beautiful.
it started becoming like a terrible nightmare.
You didn't expect it. I think it was in the town of Fusen or something like that
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Bavaria.
that's
And
right.
it's
Beautiful,
funny.
beautiful.
Oh, beautiful. Because
Beautiful.
you see them in the lake so graceful, and out of the blue, they just come out at
They just
you.
get out.
They just came
So
out
yeah.
and they're big and they're tall.
Oh yeah.
They don't look tiny like they do on the lake, but fortunately they didn't do us any harm. And all in all, like I said in the beginning, I think these became stories that stuck with us forever and just made the trip really memorable. And so,
Yeah,
I know that
very.
people, it takes a lot to plan a big trip like that. And I really appreciate you, Mom and Aunt Lauda, for planning that. And it's had an impact for all of these years, over 30 years. And so it's fun for us to share these, not just for lessons learned, but just to hear how, in hindsight, we can look at it and say, this was actually a really great trip. And we do, if people have the opportunity to travel together and to enjoy their families that way, yes, there
It
will be
is really.
bumps, but
Yeah.
it's worth it for sure. So I'd be curious if people hear this and had similar stories. I'd like them to share in the comments, like if they've had these kind of experiences or if they've learned other lessons from similar trips, for sure. And if they liked what they heard today, to like the video, to subscribe. Real quickly, I'm Joanna, my tia,
Laura,
my mom,
Anna,
and we want to remind you whether it's good, bad, or funny,
leave it
live
live
up.
it
it
up.
up.